All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we are actually going to talk about the baseline and the way you track your movement. So, last time we talked a little bit about how often you eat, how often you have been eating, how often you want to eat, how often you should eat. Now, we're going to talk about how much you have been moving, how much you are moving, and how much you want to start moving. So, maybe I'll just let Nikita start it off.
Okay, sure. So I've done it all. I've done like absolutely no movement to 5, 6 days training a week. And honestly, the most effective thing, especially for women who are busy, it's like, what's the minimum effective dosage, right? Because we don't have all the time in the world to work out. So ideally 3 days per week in the gym if you really want to see a good pace of results. Now you can get away with 2 days a week, and there's studies out recently that have said even 2 sets of an exercise, doing 8 to 12 reps, pushing yourself to like 80, 90% of your max effort, can produce growth. But in order to see maximum growth, and we want results at a good pace, training a body part twice a week is optimal. So if you do 3 days a week, you can do an upper body, lower body, and then the full body on the third day, and that's going to get you the best results. Honestly, like 2 days per week, and I've worked with a lot of clients, is more of a maintenance. But if you really want to see those changes, within a month, and we all like to see results right away, 3 is a magic spot. Now, we were talking about certain things, baselines. There are certain movements and exercises to give you a gauge of like where you're at. And right off the bat, the plank is the first one that comes to my mind. And the average person should be able to hold a plank for at least 30 seconds. So it's something you can do at home to give yourself a little test to test core strength, and you can increase from there. Now that's the strength training side of things. And then for cardio, how much cardio is adequate? And 150 minutes of moderate cardio activities is great.
Did you say 150 minutes?
Yeah.
In a day?
Oh. Per week.
Per week.
Oh, okay.
Per week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. 150 in a week. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And that's the minimum effective dosage. So to see improvements in your cardio, now that's moderate intensity. If you were to decrease the intensity, which is more of like an easy walk, then the time length increases and you're looking at more of 200 minutes.
Okay.
But something like a slight incline walk, or even like biking, and you can break that up into 2 or 3 sessions, ideally 30 to 45 minutes of something moderate intensity.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moderate, right, is it's not challenging to talk, but it's a little bit, you couldn't really have a very fluid conversation. So it's a little bit more than what's just a stroll kind of a thing. Yeah. Amita, it's funny because I used to see you walking your dog in the mornings when the kids were still in school, and I can see you're like on the phone walking the dog. I was always like, it looked like you had a pretty good pace going. So.
I know, it's kind of funny. My husband actually said that the other day. Like, he's like, "You're on the elliptical, like talking on the phone." I'm like, I know, but I didn't used to be able to do the same exact workout while talking on the phone.
Right.
And so actually, mine's like the opposite. It's like now I can, but yeah, no, I know my pace. My dog slows me down, actually.
Yeah. See, I think that, one of the things, and I think that, Nikita, you brought up a good point of, I keep wanting to start to gauge, right? Like that's kind of one of those motivating factors for me. Like I'm starting all the way over again, right? I changed gyms. So I'm starting over from scratch, and I keep thinking to myself, I go back to when I was in my early 20s, and like one of those things I like to do is measure my standing heart rate. right? Like, I don't know why, but for me, that to me was like the true test, or resting heart rate, right? It was sort of like that kind of, is what I'm doing actually enough that I'm changing, how my body is utilizing its own nutrients and turning, optimal energy, that kind of a thing. But I always struggle with, I also want to know, um, 3, 4, 5, 6 months in, I'm like, gosh, it would be great to know where I started, and I think that's why this topic was so timely, because it doesn't take very long to sit and do a couple of baseline, tests for yourself, and maybe once a month
Yeah.
measure, like you said, a plank. Like, maybe it was really hard for me to do that. But I think as a follow up, it would be really neat to know. And hopefully we can put something in the member area, that just is sort of some tips and some ideas of how to journal. Amita, I know you talk about this all the time. It's like, creating habits, but with a purpose and measurable, right? Like,
Actually,
just
you just reminded me
not to right? Like, not to push yourself out of an area where it's sustainable, but that it's motivating.
no, resting heart rate is actually really interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and test mine on my phone for a second, but
So
as we're
what
talking.
I do with my clients is a fitness test, like you're saying, Melissa, once a month. But my rule of thumb is one exercise, you reverse engineer it. So it's like, what's one thing that you need to work on? Maybe if your lower back hurts. So put in one exercise that's going to be corrective. Maybe it's a deadlift or whatever. Measure that, measure the strength. One fun exercise, something that gets you excited. Maybe for some people that's, I don't know, if they want to build a booty, like hip thrusts, something that's going to get them those results. And then the plank, and then a plank, and then something for cardiovascular. Some people want to run a 10 or 5K, 10K, or just 1 mile in a certain amount of time, or just see what it's like and then keep measuring the progress. And at the end of the day, progress is the most exciting thing, just to see yourself getting better. So Melissa, yeah, like pick what gets you excited, what you need to work on. And
That's a good idea. Yeah, because I mean, my go-to for me, because I'm 5'1", right? I mean, my go-to for me has typically been measurements. I had to learn really early on. 5 pounds for me looks a whole lot different than other people, right? Because I am so short. So weight was never really one of those units of measure. By the time it registers on the scale, it's a whole clothes size, for me. So, but measuring, right? Like using a tape measure and things like that, that for me is a good way for me to baseline more than anything. Again, like I said, is just to know that, to get me out of the mindset that what I'm doing isn't, it's like I'm not doing any good, right? Like I'm not seeing results. And so, yeah, I like the concept of that. Pick, 3, 4, 5 baselines and do that once a month. That's tangible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Really, the best ways to measure are progress photos, measurements,
Oh, okay.
the scale. Some people like them, some people don't. And then your actual strength by, like I said, tracking weights or progress, things like that. And then energy and how you feel. That's a big, big one.
Right.
On a scale of 1 to 10, it's like, okay, how did I feel month 1 in terms of energy and even mental health? And then how do I feel now? So,
oh, I love those pieces. I think when we think back to the baseline worksheet that we had and that we attached to this day, I think that's a good aspect to add in there is, how strong do I feel? Right. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I have this yearning to run. Mainly it's just because that's something I've always enjoyed. And for me, it feels, I strive for that feeling again, but it's really the strength.
Uh-oh.
is sorry.
Uh-oh.
You
You're
know,
such
our
a-
wedges and things like that. And when I trip, you know, the fact that I can still catch myself even after, you know, shattering my knee, you know, for me, that's something that I have to be really cognizant of, because if I let my knee get weak, the muscles around my knee get weak. If I were to trip, I don't have the strength to catch myself before I actually hit the ground, you know? And so it's me getting me getting older. I think that it's almost, you know, my strength is very you know, it's almost like a safety concern for me. You know what I mean? Knowing that I can, you know, can overcome some of my injuries that start becoming more and more apparent to me, right?
Yeah.
So
Good
me
job,
you're
guys.
smiling.
I think our take home points is basically find something that you want to measure and find something that's tangible, that's small, and do it for like a month, right? Like one maybe repair a thing and one like improvement thing.
Yeah.
And I think with that, we will wrap it up.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.